Hello there everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's-A-Mii here, and today we are doing another Nintendo Switch and PS5 physical news update. Quite a few pieces of news to get into, including a new release being rated by Limited Run Games on the ESRB. We'll talk about that. It's one I've been waiting for a while to get released on Switch, but also PS5 and Series X. We had the announcement of and release date for Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD announced on Nintendo Switch 2. We knew it was coming to other platforms, but now it's confirmed for Switch 2. There is a collector's edition that, let's be real, is overpriced. We'll talk about that. We have the box art and release dates and pricing for Pokemon Legends ZA on Nintendo Switch and Switch 2. Street Fighter 6 on Switch 2 has been the topic of much debate over the past couple of days, as we now know that the physical game keycard version of it, which already requires a download, that version of the game is still going to come with a download code for the DLC. Which is really weird because they're already doing a code game key card. Why is it a code for the DLC? Why is it separate? Why not just have it all be one thing? It's a little weird there. We'll talk about that. There was also an interview that RPG Site did with Marvelous, the company that's doing Daemon X Machina, Story of Seasons, and Rune Factory, all physically on the cartridge for Switch 2. They are the company that is doing Switch 2 physical games right, so I wanted to go through that interview a little bit and see what he had to say regarding their philosophy on Switch 2 physical games. So that's what we're getting into in today's news video. If you are new to the channel and you enjoy collecting content for both Nintendo and PlayStation, I would appreciate you liking the video and subscribing. I really do appreciate the support. Let's get into it. Okay, first things first, we had a pair of games rated by Limited Run on ESRB, and these are two that I've been waiting for a while to get physicals. I think I've talked about them in the past, but reading from Wario64 here, he says, Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice has been rated for Switch, and Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 has been rated for PS5 and Series X from LRG, which can only mean one thing. It means that these games are getting physical releases. Now, Hellblade 2 was just announced for PS5 last week, I want to say, and I had a feeling they might be waiting until that game comes to more platforms to do a physical for Hellblade 1 as well, which is just exciting. Hellblade 2 was digital only on Series X to begin with, so now that game will be available physically for the first time, even if it is through LRG, even if Xbox should be doing it themselves. It's still nice that there's an option. But then Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice on a Switch, this is one of those like secret miracle ports on the platform that no one really talked about. It was announced in a Nintendo Direct maybe in 2019, just randomly came out, apparently was a pretty good version of the game, and it was digital only. Well, now we have a physical version of this game coming from LRG, which is really exciting. I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest Hellblade fan. However, I will always advocate for games like this, especially games that I know people really do like. I know Hellblade is kind of like a cult classic of the PS4 era. For that to be getting a physical release on Switch is very cool, and I'll be curious to see if they do any sort of special edition for it, that kind of thing. It's nice to see Hellblade getting its flowers and proper physicals for the Switch version, but also for the second game on PS5 and Series X, which I imagine will also probably come to Switch 2 down the line, at which point maybe LRG will do a physical of Hellblade 2 on Switch 2 as well. This is the first LRG Xbox game that we've had, I think, since Grounded and Pentiment, that wave that came out at the beginning of 2024. We're still waiting on Hi-Fi Rush. I don't know if that's necessarily Limited Run's fault. I think that's because Xbox shut down the studio and then Krafton bought Tango Gameworks, so we'll see if Hi-Fi Rush ever gets updated, because I would like to see that game as well physically on PS5. And then from there, I would like to see more physical stuff from Xbox and LRG if Xbox isn't going to do it themselves, like a Forza Horizon 5 even on PS5. That game came out in April, blew up. I think it's already sold over 2 million copies on PS5, and it still doesn't have a physical on that platform. That's so weird to me. So if LRG, you know, last resort, if we could get them to do a physical for that, maybe Oblivion Remastered, if Xbox isn't willing to do it, get them to do it, and that is better than nothing in my opinion. I think that would be really cool, and once again, Xbox should be doing it, but if they're not going to do it, at least we have LRG to kind of fill in their shoes. Next up, let's talk a little bit about Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD Remake. So this was announced last year alongside the Dragon Quest 3 Remake that came out in November. It was a huge sales success on Switch, PS5, Series X, PC. Well, now we have Dragon Quest 1 and 2 coming out on a Switch, PS5, Series X, Steam, as well as Switch 2. We didn't know there was going to be a Switch 2 version of this game. I had talked about how I thought there would be a version. It would be weird if Square Enix just kind of skipped the hot new platform. However, for the physical collectors, a huge asterisk on this, similar to Bravely Default from Square Enix, which is another remaster. That's a launch title from them on the Switch 2. Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD on a Switch 2 will be a game keycard release. Here's that North American box art saying that it is a game keycard release. It requires a 17 gig download. it sucks. You know, I have made my stance on game key cards very clear. Personally, it's not like a deal breaker for me. However, I'm still gonna say, like, yeah, this is stupid. Every time I see a Switch 2 box art pop up that says game key card, there is like a little bit of a sigh, like, okay, well, here we go again. This is a game that I know people would want to own physically. I already saw a lot of people on Reddit saying, well, why not just go ahead and buy the Switch 1 version and then maybe upgrade to the Switch 2 version? Currently, they haven't detailed any upgrade paths for this game, so I'm not sure if that will even be an option for this. Square Enix, I'm not sure how they've done upgrades in the past on PS4 to PS5. I want to say there was an upgrade for Final Fantasy VII Remake, but I wouldn't hold my breath on an upgrade. Some companies are doing them, some are not, like Sega and Atlas. Hopefully, they change their mind on that. Ideally, it will be a situation where you can buy Dragon Quest 1 and 2 on Switch 1, have the physical with the data on the cartridge, and then if you want to play the Switch 2 version, which should run at 60 FPS versus 30 on Switch 1, you can upgrade for like $5 or $10 or something. Really, it should just be free. If they're charging $60 for both versions, if you buy the Switch version, you should just get both. But it's Square Enix. I'm not holding my breath here. The box art is very clean. I do love that box art. And then we also had a special edition for the game announced. They did one similar to this last year for the third game. However, this one is $150. I think that one was $200. And this might be one of the worst special editions I've seen. I love Dragon Quest, and I saw, oh, collector's edition, maybe I'll check this out. So the game is $60 by itself. The special edition is $150, so you're spending an extra $90. All you get is the big outer box, right? You get these acrylic standees of some of the monsters and heroes. You get some in-game items, a digital wallpaper, and then the pre-order bonus, which I don't even think is actually exclusive to the special edition. So you are paying like $90 for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 acrylic blocks. That is horrible. Square Enix, you gotta get your collector's edition game back one point, because this is like, I want to buy it. I want to be the person buying the Dragon Quest 1 and 2 Special Edition. It's such an easy thing to do. Dragon Quest has such great characters, great art. Where's the high quality art book in this, right? Where's the better statue? I think acrylic standees may be the worst thing to include in a special edition. For $150? I mean, listen, I'm not going to judge if you decide you want to buy this. If you're a huge Dragon Quest fan, I get it. Even just for that collectible outer case that looks like a, Dragon Quest book. Like, that's cool, but what are we doing here? You got to do better than this, Square Enix. You got to do better than this. Next up, let's talk briefly about Pokemon Legends ZA. This was just announced this morning as of when I'm recording, but we got the release date, the pricing, and the box art for both the Switch and Switch 2 versions. We were waiting on the key art for this. I'm not sure if I like it quite as much as the Legends Arceus one, but it's still really nice. Nighttime Lumiose City here. We got Mega Lucario. Looks like this Chikorita is about to fight this Mega Lucario. That's a bad idea, Chikorita. About to get absolutely bodied, but there is the Switch 1 box art versus the Switch 2 box art. Of course, the Switch 2 version is going to be on the cartridge. Keep that in mind. Nintendo first-party games so far seemingly are all going to be on the cartridge, as well as the Switch 1 version. So you're getting that Switch 2 frame rates and resolution bump. The game's going to run better. I don't think there's any other additional features that we've seen, but really that frame rate and that resolution, those are the important things, and that'll be on the cartridge. So if you are buying a Switch 2, this is one of those true physical games that you can look forward to later this year. As we now know, it is releasing on October 16th. A little bit earlier than expected, but can't really complain. We also have pricing for it. So in the US, it's going to be $60 on Switch 1, $70 on Switch 2. That's about expected. I'm going to be honest, it's Pokemon. I'm just happy it's not 80. Mario Kart World is 80. I think they could probably get away with it for Pokemon. So $70 for the Switch 2 version. So really $10 for that upgrade. Likely is how much you'll be able to pay digitally on the eShop. If you buy it on Switch 1 and want to upgrade later, it'll probably be about $10 like the other games have been so far. So that's about as expected. And then we also have the European prices here. And then we don't have pricing on this yet, but Central Leaks posted this. Special bundles with Pokemon Legends ZA will be available at the My Nintendo store and Europe. I feel like the US never gets anything like this when it comes to Pokemon. I remember, I think it was Legends Arceus. I think maybe if you ordered that through Pokemon Center in the US, you got like an Arceus sitting cutie plush, but it looks like there's going to be some different options here for Legends ZA merch, different starter pins. There's an umbrella, a little mug and pin sets, as well as this little statue of these starters here. So pretty cool. If you're interested in that and you're in Europe, there will be some bundles available if you buy it through the My Nintendo store. Very excited for Legends ZA. Definitely one of my most anticipated games of the year. Runs a lot better on Switch 2 from what we've seen, which is good. So I will be picking up that Switch 2 version on October 16th. Next up, let's talk about Street Fighter 6 Years 1 to 2 Fighters Edition. So Genki_Japan over on Twitter noted this. He said, quote, "The Japanese box says that the Years 1 to 2 DLC for Street Fighter 6 Fighters Edition is a code in the box that expires 2 years from a release. This is on top of the base game being a game keycard pointed out by Does It Play. On other platforms, you also get the base game on disc and a code, but a game keycard and a code in the box is interesting for a physical release." So, as we all know, Street Fighter 6 already a game keycard on Switch 2. However, somewhere in this Japanese text, it is highlighting that there will be a download code for the Fighters Pass, the 2 years of DLC. That is a code. Now, this inherently is nothing new for Capcom. I'm not trying to defend them necessarily, but this isn't new. However, people were freaking out because it is a game keycard, because it already requires a download. Why make this DLC separately? Capcom, for their releases, as long as I can really remember, I think even on PS3, but especially on PS4, all of their games that include DLC, usually it's a code. Like the Resident Evil Gold editions, those are codes for the DLC. The Mega Mans, as we all know, those include codes for DLC, that kind of thing. So this isn't really anything new. However, the fact that it's a game key card combined with a download code, I think set people off a little bit here. It's annoying. However, there's a 2-year date on it. Realistically, by the time that this code would expire, this won't even be on store shelves anymore, I feel like. And then at that point, they would likely have a Street Fighter Years 1 through 4 Fighters Edition or something like that. They keep updating it every couple years with a new physical. They do that with Street Fighter very commonly. So I don't think it's a big deal. It is annoying, don't get me wrong. I would prefer if the game and all of the DLC was on the cartridge for sure. And this also isn't exclusive to the Switch 2 version, like Genki pointed out here. It's going to be the same thing on the PS5 and Series X releases. So definitely annoying. I wish they would do like that definitive release that has all the content on there, but par for the course for Capcom, I suppose, as of late. We have an interview with Marvelous to go over, but this literally popped up while I was recording and editing this video. I was about to hit exports. We got our first look at Rune Factory Guardians of Ozma. We have the cartridge as well as the inside box art, which gives us a nice look at how the inside art for Switch 2 games will actually end up looking. This is from Nintendo. I think they took it from Reddit, though. They say, first look at Nintendo Switch 2 Edition game card. This game card works in both Switch 1 and Switch 2, so you can pop the red Switch 2 cartridge into the Switch 1. LB code, Switch 2 only, LN code works on Switch 1 and Switch 2. Which is interesting. So that they're talking about the code here. So we have a nice real photo of a real Switch 2 cartridge in the wild, in the flesh. And surprise, surprise, it looks like a Switch 1 cartridge, but it's red. Here is the back comparison. And then more notably, we have the box art. And then here's what I was really curious about. We have the inside where you can actually see a little bit. It looks like they did do a reversible cover for this game because, yeah, this is the main box art. And then, yeah, you can kind of see there is a reversible cover there. Nothing crazy. I was wondering about this, though, because they are using the red cases. How much are you really going to be able to see? It's definitely not as visible as it is on like a Switch 1 game that has inside arts, but at least it's translucent enough so that you can see something. They can put their little, information in the backgrounds. And I'll be curious to see how developers end up actually using this space. I doubt most will. It's probably going to be a lot of just empty red, but at least you can see through it a little bit. So some publishers, if they decide to, they can do some fun things with the inside arts. I'm not expecting much of it, though. This generation, Switch 1 was already like barely any. Maybe Nintendo will. But yeah, nice to get our first look at a retail Switch 2 game, and definitely very excited for Rune Factory. Let's get into that interview, though. And then finally, I wanted to highlight this article from RPG Site. They did an interview with the CEO of Marvelous, who, like I said, has been kind of on top of the game when it comes to Switch 2 physical games, where Story of Seasons and Daemon X Machina and Rune Factory, these are all complete on the cartridge. They did an interview with Ken Berry, the CEO and co-founder of Marvelous/Xseed, regarding Rune Factory and Story of Seasons and the company's philosophy. We kind of got that from this interview. So first up, RPG Site asked how it's been working on Rune Factory for Switch 2 behind the scenes, and Ken Berry responded, "This is the first time we've been part of a hardware launch, and as exciting as it is to be there day one, it's also brought a lot of unique challenges since it is so hard to forecast for a platform that hasn't been released yet. From an operational standpoint, a PC release is easy as it can theoretically be announced very close to launch as a digital-only product, but physical products, especially card-based media and special editions that have custom components, have lead times that can extend multiple months, so we essentially were already manufacturing before the Switch 2 was even announced." RPG Site said that Xseed and Marvelous have been fantastic physical release publishers in North America for years, with standard editions often including reversible downloadable art, instruction booklets, manuals, and more. These obviously aren't cheap to do, but it has been a constant for games you publish physically. What made you want to keep doing these even during the Switch era where many publishers don't bother and do either incomplete physicals or digital-only titles? And Kim responded, it's a combination of personal preference and a long-term business strategy, because as a fan of physical media, I'm always disappointed when I open a case and only the disc or game card is in there, while building up goodwill with our fans is always a good investment. Then he talks about how he didn't buy a PS5 Pro until he could get the disc drive one add-on first. He said, but years ago, I remember buying a game at the store and was shocked that only a download code was inside the case when I got home. If someone like me who's been in the industry for half my life can't tell the difference on which case contains the physical game or not, I can only imagine how much more difficult it is for non-industry people, especially if they are purchasing as a gift for someone else. I never want anyone to have buyer's remorse after purchasing one of our retail games. I instead want them to be pleasantly surprised with the bonus goods and visuals when they open up one of our cases. So that right there is why Marvelous is doing it. It comes down to the CEO of the company also being just a big fan of physical media. So I'm sure he had a lot to push in there and internally to make sure, like, hey, even though we're going to lose a little bit of money on these physical versions because the game card production is a little bit more expensive with the 64 gig options, it was something they wanted to do internally. It's a philosophy they stand by, and I hope it pays off for them, and I think it will, based on the comments I've seen around the internet and on my videos. RPG Site says, both Story of Seasons and Rune Factory are getting full physical releases without game keycards or code and box editions. I know many folks who are buying Rune Factory or Cyberpunk, as they're the only retail releases next month on Switch 2. How has it been for the team to see the positive response to these physical releases in a sea of game keycards? And Kim responded, it has been very rewarding to see our titles mentioned as games that fans intend to purchase on Switch 2 since they know we went with the full ROM game cards. It was not an easy decision, as it had to be made many months ago when things were very uncertain and we were still learning about how the game keycard option worked, but the more we found out, the more I thought our fans would much prefer the ROM option. There were many discussions with Marvelous Japan on how the ROM option would enable the Nintendo Switch 2 Enhanced designation that would allow the game to be played on both the new Switch 2 as well as the original Switch hardware, and we finally had an agreement that this was the most user-friendly option. From there, it was a matter of making the numbers work, and having the $10 premium on our Switch 2 versions allowed us to do it without being fiscally irresponsible. So that is worth noting. All of their games so far that I've seen that are complete on cartridge for Switch 2 are $10 cheaper on Switch 1. So a game like Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar, I'm pretty sure is $50 on Switch, and then it's $60 on Switch 2. I guess it just feels a little bit more natural because Marvelous always had a little bit more variable pricing to their games. So now with the Switch 2 versions, because they're paying more for those cartridges, they're charging $10 more. So the pricing never even really struck me. I was like, oh, it's so much more expensive. It's like, oh, now it just costs what other games costs. But it's also on the cartridge, which is great. And then really the most important, question asked her in this interview, they asked him, how do you like your coffee? And he said with milk, no sugar. So great interview. I will have it linked down below if you want to read through the full thing. They talk a little bit about Daemon X Machina. They talk about those 3DS releases where they have the little cutouts in the boxes so they could put character faces and stuff like that. Highly recommend you check it out. Huge shout out to RPG Site for a great interview. And once again, I was going to do a whole video on it, but I figured this would suffice. Marvelous, MVP. They're the MVPs. I want to say CD Projekt Red and Nintendo themselves with their first-party releases are also doing a great job, but it's the fact that Marvelous, on day one, announced 3 games for Switch 2, and all of them were on the cartridge. They have these nice premium special editions. The pricing isn't ridiculous. Like, Marvelous is the company that, if you are a huge fan of true physical media that has all of the data on the cartridge, they're the ones to look out for, and they're the ones to be supporting. But that is going to do it for today's news update. Let me know what you think on all of the stuff we discussed in today's video in the comments down below. Hellblade is getting a physical through LRG on Switch, but also Hellblade 2 on PS5 and Series X. Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD has a really dumb special edition, but also a Switch 2 game keycard option. We'll be picking it up on a Switch 2, PS5. Let me know what you think down there. We also have the box art and release date and pricing for Legends ZA. Street Fighter 6 is using a download code. And then, yeah, we had this interview with Marvelous. So let me know your thoughts on all of that in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo and PlayStation collecting content. Gonna try to be doing daily uploads until the Switch 2 comes out. And then from there, I'm going to do a lot of Switch 2 videos. Get ready for a lot of Switch 2 coverage on this channel. I'm going to be doing videos on pretty much every game, launch game, unboxing it, doing handheld gameplay, a little bit of a review, impressions, that kind of thing. So definitely stay tuned for that. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. Check out my Nintendo news channel at BoTalksGames as well. And you can click on one of these 2 videos to listen to me ramble about even more Nintendo collecting nonsense. Until next time, folks. Peace.